This is dangerous. But I won't stop.
I thought I had it all figured out. My wife, Sarah, was everything I'd ever wanted. Gorgeous, brilliant, and what I believed was completely devoted to our marriage. We met back in college when I was studying engineering, and she was in law school. Funny thing is, we ended up sitting next to each other in this random creative writing class neither of us really wanted to take. Our last names put us alphabetically next to each other, and that's where everything started. Looking back now, maybe that random seating arrangement was both the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. I wasn't exactly the campus heartthrob, but somehow we just clicked. What started as classroom banter turned into coffee dates, then study sessions, and before we knew it, we were inseparable. One night after dinner and a movie, I walked her back to her dorm thinking I'd just say goodnight. That simple goodbye kiss turned into something much more, and I woke up in her bed the next morning. From that point on, we were completely devoted to each other. Those were honestly the happiest days of my life, and I thought they'd last forever. How naive I was. College flew by in a blur of intense studying and deeper romance. We spent holidays with each other's families, and by graduation, nobody was surprised when I proposed, and she said yes immediately. We both felt like we had something special that was worth protecting. After college, we transitioned smoothly into our careers. I landed a solid position with a construction firm that appreciated my hands-on engineering approach, while Sarah started at a prestigious law office. Our demanding schedules left little free time, but we always made room for each other, whether it was weekend getaways or passionate nights at home. 7 years flew by, and as our anniversary approached, I started thinking about our future. I pictured us buying a house, starting a family, taking that next big step beyond our current apartment life. We were both doing well financially, and it felt like the perfect time to plan the next chapter of our lives. I was so excited about the possibilities that I'd even started looking at houses online during my lunch breaks. But Sarah didn't share my vision. Strangely enough, we'd never really talked about what came after marriage. We never fought about it, and she seemed perfectly content with our current situation. She saw no reason to change anything and said maybe someday she'd be ready for more, but not right now. A few days before our anniversary, I was in the kitchen making dinner, my usual routine since I got home earlier than Sarah. I was in the middle of cooking when she walked in and, as casually as discussing the weather, dropped a bombshell that changed everything. "I have a date this Friday," Sarah announced calmly as she set down her purse. I froze completely, unable to process what I'd just heard. Surely I misunderstood her. I asked her to repeat herself, and she did with the same matter-of-fact tone. She'd agreed to go on a date with some guy named Connor. She even used the nickname Con like it was the most normal thing in the world. My world collapsed in that moment. Shock gave way to a flood of questions racing through my mind. Why was she unhappy? Had she been cheating? Did she want a divorce? How had this happened? Who was Connor? What had I missed? Our relationship, even our intimate life, seemed so solid to me. I felt like I'd been living in some kind of fantasy while she'd been planning this behind my back. Sarah, completely unaffected by my obvious distress, answered with chilling calmness. "It's simple," she said, like she was explaining something obvious. "I get attention constantly, even when we're together. You've seen it throughout school and now. Dating was never my focus before. All my time and energy went to studying and building my career. But lately, you've been pushing me more towards settling down, buying a house, starting a family. So I thought, why not try dating? Besides, there's this incredibly attractive guy who's been flirting with me. Probably the most handsome man who's ever shown interest in me." I was stunned, speechless. "Well, thanks, Sarah. What a great boost to my self-esteem," I replied sarcastically. "And what about us? Are you just tossing me aside like an old toy?" "Oh, come on," Sarah responded dismissively. "You know you're handsome and I love you. It's just something fun I want to try. It's not like it's serious." Anger boiled up inside me. "Well, I absolutely disagree. I think you shouldn't be dating other men. It'll destroy everything we've built." Sarah rolled her eyes and let out a heavy sigh. "I didn't realize you were so dramatic. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just one date. Nothing special." Deciding not to let her dismiss me, I replied, "Fine. If it's such a minor thing, then I'll go on a date too." Sarah burst out laughing. "You? On a date? You're kidding, right? You couldn't find a date by Friday if your life depended on it." Her laughter grew louder, filled with condescension. "Look, It's easy for women to get dates, even if they're not supermodels. But for men, especially those who aren't drop-dead gorgeous, that takes real effort. You're sweet, George, but attractive? Not exactly. Her mocking laughter echoed through the room, and I felt my patience snapping. I couldn't believe she was humiliating me like this. First she announced her date, and now she was telling me I could never do the same. Her relentless laughter was the final straw. In that moment, I realized I was looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. Instead of lashing out, I made a choice to leave before things went too far. Sarah, I'm too angry to think clearly right now. You blindsided me, and now you're laughing at me. With those words, I stormed out and headed to my buddy Marcus's place. Marcus had been my closest friend for years. We'd play video games, drink beer, and understand each other without needing many words. That evening was no different. I didn't explain why I was there, and he didn't ask. The next morning, I arrived at work with a pounding headache and running late. For the first time ever, Lisa, our office administrator, immediately noticed something was wrong. She'd always had a soft spot for me, but never said anything. My boss didn't make a fuss either. I was too reliable for anyone to worry about one bad day. That evening when I got home, I didn't want to cook for both of us, but out of habit, I did anyway. Sarah came in at her usual time and couldn't resist another jab. Oh, back after your little temper tantrum? She mocked with a smug smile. So, any updates? Still planning on finding yourself a date by Friday? Her words dripped with arrogance. I looked at her, barely recognizing the woman standing before me. When had everything gone so wrong? In a calm but firm tone, I repeated, Sarah, if you go on this date, it will destroy us. I'm serious. If you don't cancel it, I will go on a date this Friday too. What she said next cut like a knife. Oh, really? And who are you planning to date? Lisa from your office. She's old enough to be your mother, weighs as much as a whale, and is married to a guy who'd probably eliminate you if you even looked her way. There are no other women at your work. So who are you going to date? Maybe you'll ask one of the guys out. Yeah, that'll go over real well. Maybe it was time to call an escort, I thought bitterly. After all, paying for company wasn't really cheating, right? Sarah had no idea that her mocking, dismissive laughter was slowly eroding my love for her like acid eating through steel. Who was this woman she'd become? Were all our good moments just a mask hiding her true nature? I felt utterly drained, not just physically but spiritually. In silence, I headed to the bedroom. Sarah came in later, surprised to see me already fast asleep. Usually I initiated our intimate moments, but tonight I had no desire for that. She felt her usual longing but didn't even consider waking me. Our physical closeness had always been consistent, so this sudden distance felt strange to her. By midweek, when Sarah came home from work, she found me furiously typing on my phone. We'd always agreed on no phones after work so we could focus on each other over dinner. The food was ready, but I didn't even look up when she entered. A sly smile appeared on her face. Trying to make me jealous? She asked sarcastically. No kiss today? Too busy with your Friday night plans? Who's texting you, Lisa? I bet her husband would love to know. Or is it Marcus? Are you two up to something? Her laughter grew louder, turning into a cackle. Each mocking remark stabbed me in the heart. With every word, my feelings for her seemed to wither. I began to resent her more and more. The woman I'd fallen in love with was disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone cruel and selfish I didn't recognize. Slowly, I raised my head from my phone. Sarah, this has to stop. You're destroying us with these jokes and barbs. If this keeps going, I'm warning you, our marriage won't survive. For the first time, Sarah fell silent. Then she shrugged. Oh, relax. It's just one date. You'll survive. It's no big deal. I told you, I just want to know what it's like to go on a date with an incredibly attractive person. I've never done it, and I'm curious. My frustration grew. We made vows to each other, Sarah. What we have is supposed to be special, and you're tearing it apart. I turned and went upstairs, leaving her alone in the kitchen. The next day, Sarah came home to an empty house. I arrived later, but something was different. My hair was freshly cut and styled in a way I hadn't worn it in years. Unable to resist, she made another sarcastic comment. New haircut for your big night out? She said with air quotes, then burst into laughter. I'm sure Marcus will appreciate it when you two meet Friday. I completely ignored her and headed to the bedroom to change. But what I saw there only added fuel to the fire smoldering inside me. When I returned to the kitchen, Sarah was waiting with that familiar smirk. I noticed a Victoria's Secret bag on the dresser, she said innocently. Interesting choice. Did you buy yourself some lingerie for your night out? Looks like more than just a meeting. What kind did you pick? Funny, you never wore anything like that on our honeymoon. I remember asking about wedding night lingerie, and you said your body was more than enough for me. Now you're buying this? If it's just a date, I guess he won't even see it, right? My anger flared, but I fought to keep it in check. My fists clenched, my jaw tightened. I wanted to explode, but somehow held myself back. In the chaos of recent days, I was barely keeping afloat. Sarah, whether oblivious or indifferent to my inner turmoil, continued behaving as if nothing had changed. She seemed lost in her own thoughts, lightly smiling. You have to be a special kind of person to remain the most attractive guy. It just makes me feel even more attractive. She cast a fleeting glance at me and casually shrugged. My patience, already hanging by a thread, snapped. Oh, how great that my confidence is just fine, I responded sarcastically. But Sarah kept going. It's so important for me to see you in your underwear, and now some random guy gets that pleasure on what you call just a date. My irritation peaked. Let's get something straight, Sarah. This has gone too far. If you put something on for me tonight and cancel your date tomorrow, I might be able to get through this. But if you don't, if you really go on that date, we're done. Sarah giggled, completely ignoring the seriousness of my words. You're always so desperate for intimacy. She waved dismissively. I've waited all week, and this is the longest I've gone without it. It's always about you, isn't it? I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to wear something just for you. I stared at her, my gaze hardening, making her squirm nervously. After a tense pause, I finally spoke. If you go on that date Friday, we will never make love again. With that, I turned and walked toward the bedroom, leaving her to ponder my ultimatum. Friday arrived, and as promised, I did nothing to prepare dinner. I was already making my own plans. When Sarah returned from work, she found me dressed to the nines. Freshly ironed shirt, new pants, looking better than usual. This only intensified her irritation over our recent lack of intimacy. She briefly considered making the first move, but her stubbornness won out. Sarah had her own plans for the evening. She began getting ready for her date, noticing something odd in the apartment but dismissing it, too preoccupied with meeting Connor to think much about it. I left first, and soon after, Sarah departed to meet Connor at a trendy restaurant. Dinner went smoothly. Connor was charming and attentive, entertaining her all night. When dinner ended, he suggested continuing at his place, and Sarah agreed without hesitation. She imagined an exciting, passionate night, but reality was far from her fantasy. As soon as they walked through his door, Connor's behavior shifted abruptly. He pushed her onto the couch and sneered, "Bet you love being easy prey." The words stung, and all her enthusiasm evaporated. She quickly extracted herself from the situation, trying to preserve some dignity. The night was still young, and going home would mean admitting defeat, so she went to her friend Emma's place. She spun a fabricated story about fighting with me, and Emma gladly welcomed her. They spent the night watching romantic comedies and drowning their frustrations in cheap wine. The next morning, Sarah woke with a pounding headache, the hangover a harsh reminder of the previous night. Emma suggested shopping to clear their minds, and Sarah, in no rush to return home, agreed. When she finally got back, it was well past dinner time. She expected to find me brooding, but instead the apartment was empty. Only then did she notice what had been off all along. My things were gone. My work boots weren't by the door, and my side of the dresser was cleared out. She smirked, shaking her head, deciding this was just an overreaction on my part. He'll come crawling back with his tail between his legs, begging to forget all about this, she muttered. She wondered how my own night had gone, quietly laughing at the thought. But by the following Saturday, her amusement had worn thin. I still hadn't returned, and there wasn't a word from me, no calls or messages. She briefly considered calling my parents or Marcus, but her pride stopped her. After all, I had left. If I wanted to come back, I could call, text, or show up whenever I wanted, but she wasn't going to look for me. As the second week dragged on, her irritation grew. She couldn't understand where I'd gone. She even drove by my workplace, spotting my truck in its usual spot. But I was nowhere to be seen. Sarah was slowly beginning to realize she might have caused far more damage than initially imagined. Although the full weight of her actions hadn't hit her yet, our relationship had always seemed solid to her. How had one simple date turned into such chaos? The more she replayed everything, the more confused she became. What she didn't understand was that it was never really about the date itself. It had been 2 weeks since she casually mentioned going on a date with someone. 2 weeks since she walked into the office and was blindsided by news of impending divorce. The shock was still fresh, and stunned didn't begin to describe how she felt. Sarah had always thought I had a flair for drama, but now it seemed I was being irrational. Divorce over one date? It seemed utterly ridiculous. Moreover, I'd left her a note asking her to contact my lawyer with any questions about the divorce. The nerve. Sarah could barely believe it. Her thoughts drifted to our shared history. 2 years of dating in school, 7 years of marriage, and now she was being asked to consult a lawyer, as if she couldn't handle this herself. Half the lawyers in her firm were already eyeing her. But then a troubling image flashed through her mind. Me and Marcus together. An unpleasant feeling crept into her soul. Could I really be seeing Marcus? Were we planning to get married? The thought seemed absurd, and Sarah couldn't help but smirk. What a joke. She stuffed the divorce papers into her briefcase and went home, convinced this whole thing would blow over soon. I couldn't possibly be serious. I was just trying to force her to apologize, but she wasn't going to give me that satisfaction. However, as time passed, Sarah felt growing frustration. She ate dinner alone night after night in our once shared condo. The silence was becoming unbearable. As time went on, she began to realize how much she missed me. She'd enjoyed my company far more than she'd been willing to admit. Now that I was gone, the void I left was becoming unbearable. Guilt started stirring within her. Maybe, just maybe, she'd made a mistake. But admitting that was hard, so she devised a plan. She needed information, and that meant talking to Marcus. Sarah knew where Marcus liked to hang out, so she deliberately arranged to accidentally run into him one day. When Marcus saw her, his first instinct was to run. He'd always found Sarah intimidating, but she caught him before he could leave, and they exchanged strained greetings. The awkwardness was palpable. Marcus knew exactly why she'd sought him out, and it made him uneasy. I'd already told him everything, and he had no desire to get involved in Sarah's schemes. In his opinion, she should have been begging me for forgiveness for how she'd treated me. But Sarah, with all her legal soliminates, found herself at a loss. Her ability to persuade and argue was useless here. The silence stretched until Marcus could no longer hold back. "Enough with the games," he exploded, irritation boiling over. "You're here because you want to know where George is, and you think I'll help you? Well, guess what, Sarah? Screw you. He loved you, and you treated him like garbage. You broke his heart, laughed at him, and now you're surprised he wants a divorce?" Sarah blinked, startled by the venom in Marcus's voice, but still didn't grasp that he wasn't going to help her. "Come on, Marcus. This is just a misunderstanding. If you tell me where to find him, we can fix everything." Marcus had always gone along with whatever Sarah said. She was incredibly beautiful, the woman of his dreams, and out of loyalty to me, he'd never wanted to cause problems. But now, seeing her true nature, he felt no obligation to be kind. She didn't care about me, didn't care about our marriage. And she'd proven that with her actions. "Sarah," he said with disdain, "we both know you're not here by accident. You came for answers, but I don't have any for you. George worshipped you, and you threw it all away for a casual fling. He warned you, but you laughed in his face. And now you're shocked he's moving on. Let him go. Enjoy your pretty boys." He walked past her without sparing a glance, leaving without looking back. Sarah stood frozen, stunned by his words, but soon brushed off the entire situation. She convinced herself Marcus was no different from others, just another man trying to seduce her, not worthy of her attention. Yet, despite her outward confidence, something inside remained unsettled, and she felt the urge to talk to someone. But who? Emma was out of the question. Her friend had once hinted she dreamed of having a partner like me. Her parents weren't an option either. They'd always admired me. In the end, Sarah decided to do nothing. Time passed. Exactly 4 months until a court summons left her no choice. Reluctantly, she turned to a divorce attorney from her firm, one who specialized in divorces. After laying out her situation, the attorney advised her to proceed with the divorce. Though Sarah hesitated, clinging to hope of saving the marriage, the barrage of legal questions soon made her position clear. "Have you spoken to your husband since he left?" the attorney asked. "No," she replied quietly. "Have you continued seeing Connor or anyone else?" "Not Connor," her voice hardened. "He turned out to be a selfish idiot, but I have needs too." "Do you really think your husband wants to reconcile?" the attorney pressed. Sarah faltered. Doubts began creeping in. She thought she might have destroyed something good, but still believed that if she spoke to me, we could fix things. In the end, she agreed to meet with me, though reluctantly accepted the inevitability of divorce. However, the divorce attorney was puzzled. Was this the same Sarah rumored around the office, supposedly always on the lookout for a new man? Now she seemed completely blind to the fact that I'd emotionally checked out long ago. There was no chance I'd come back, whether or not I had someone else. When the day came, we met in my attorney's office. Sarah thought I looked surprisingly good, while I couldn't help but notice how worn out she appeared. It was obvious she hadn't been sleeping, had lost weight, and was under immense stress. But despite all that, Sarah still didn't grasp the full picture. After some polite small talk, she decided to ask me directly, "What does all this mean? I went on one innocent date and you're blowing it up to the point of filing for divorce?" I sighed, tired of this conversation. She really didn't understand. "I warned you, Sarah. I told you this would destroy us. Do you really think that date meant nothing? You didn't even sleep with the guy, but what about the lingerie you wore for him? The one you never wore for me? You enjoyed flaunting yourself in front of him, just like you did with others before. You humiliated me, made me feel worthless, and I was the one you said you loved." My voice grew slightly louder. "No, Sarah, you've always thought only about yourself. What you needed, what you could get. This marriage was never about us. And just so you know, that same Friday, I went on a date too. It went well, really well. In fact, I'm planning to marry her as soon as the divorce is finalized. So, sign the papers and let me go." I stood up and left without looking back. Sarah sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had happened. The full weight of the situation hit her. She'd indeed ruined everything, but it was too late now. She agreed to the divorce, and when it was finalized, she left with half the assets, including the apartment. Years passed. Sarah dated handsome men, went through failed relationships, and dealt with health issues. It was only after seeing a therapist that she realized the painful truth. She needed to grow up. By then, there were many regrets, but none weighed as heavily as losing me, the one man she'd truly pushed away. Although she eventually met someone kind and reliable, nothing would ever compare to what she once had with me. This regret would haunt her for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, my life moved on. I went on that fateful date, and by midweek, I wasn't exchanging messages with Lisa or Marcus, but with someone else. Lisa, one of my colleagues, had never liked Sarah. She was sharp-tongued and quick to judge people's characters. So when I came to work upset after fighting with Sarah, Lisa immediately sensed something had happened. Over lunch, I told her the whole story. Lisa liked me quite a lot. I wasn't like other engineers, not arrogant or overconfident. As it turned out, Lisa had a daughter 3 years younger than me. Soon she gave me her daughter's phone number. That evening, I wasn't texting Lisa or Marcus, but Lisa's daughter, which marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I soon learned that Amy was single and thriving in her stable, well-paid career. Unlike Sarah, she had an infectious smile that could light up any room, and there was no denying she was very attractive. However, what mattered most was that she eagerly agreed to go on a date with me the following Friday. My wife Sarah was not part of this new chapter I envisioned, and her absence from this date would definitively mark the changes in our relationship. Judging by hints from Amy's mother, nothing stood in our way. Amy felt I would make a wonderful companion, and her intuition proved right. Shortly after Sarah and I divorced officially, I married Amy. Our bond was genuine, built on mutual love, and we lived a happy marriage filled with passion and deep affection that lasted forever. That's my story. Sometimes one moment can change everything, and sometimes the person you thought you knew shows you who they really are when it matters most. Looking back, I realized Sarah did me a favor by showing her true colors before we had kids, or bought property together. Amy and I have been happily married for 3 years now, and every day I'm grateful for how things turned out.